Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today is Chris Rossini, our co-host. Chris, welcome to the program.
It's great to be with you again, Dr. Paul.
Very good. You know, there's been a term used in the media, especially political media, and talk about what's going on in the world, and they've used the word reset, you know, the Great Reset, and people have various opinions about it, but it's a major social and economic event where things change significantly. And of course, that's what we talk about all the time. There's a lot of changes going on, you know, stock market crashes and policies keep changing, but this one is written up as being something bigger. And a lot of people see it as catastrophic, and in some ways that's a good warning, and we should see what's happening as being catastrophic. But you know, I think the word reset is misleading, at least for me, because I think of resetting as when you reset your television or your computer, reboot it or something, and that is not about what's going to happen. Reset is resetting the whole of society and economics and the principles of liberty and alignments of nations, and it's a really, really big deal, and it's happened, you know, throughout history. So the article that we found that brings this subject up comes from the Mises Wire, Anthony Muller, and he talks about the World Economic Council, this has been around for 50 years, and they're talking about it. And he sort of recites in the article what they're saying, and they want to come across as analysts and academicians and all. But when I read it, Chris, I don't know if you thought the same thing, but it's also, you know, a fair warning, you know, of what some people who want, not just analysis, but and they pretend not to take a position. But the way I read this is this was propaganda. This is what we like. And that is a little bit scary because, you know, a lot of these things have happened, but this one's pretty blunt, you know, about what they want to do, even though we've been moving in that direction for a long time. So I sort of think it's a big event. At the same time, when I look at history, things like this have happened before, and it to me sometimes looks like steady progress in the wrong direction, because I frequently, Chris, would talk about, you know, the last 120 years since the progressive era in this country, that there's been some resets, but that's not exactly what they're talking about in the reset. They're talking about something more, you know, more short-term and have sudden changes. But anyway, it's changes, and I think the important thing about this article, Chris, is the fact that if you read this, and you don't even have to read between the lines, you have to assume maybe motivations, but this is in a way a warning of some serious things going on. And when you look at this past year, the kind of things we've been talking about, beware, look at what's happening. And the people who talk about the reset and try to analyze it, especially from a libertarian viewpoint, see this as a dire warning. So I think this is an important event, and Chris, I know you've looked into this a little bit. Give us your wisdom.
Yeah, I'll try, Dr. Paul. But it is fascinating that, you know, in the last 200-300 years, the market economy created by far the most widespread prosperity to ever exist on Earth, at least to all historical records. And in this atmosphere, we're hearing the words, "You will own nothing and be happy." And you know why? Because political elites always have a problem with widespread prosperity. When there's independent wealth, when an average person becomes wealthy and does not need the political elites, you know, that they're threatened. And if you look at what happened this year, who really took the hit? It's small businesses. You know, the political elites are fine, and we've been talking about that. But for them to even say you will own nothing is absolutely ridiculous. That implies no private property. That implies one owner of property. And as the great Ludwig von Mises pointed out, you can't have that. You can't have one owner, because then you will not have market prices. With trade, you need two private property owners. They come together and they form prices. Without prices, you can't have profits and losses. Without profits and losses, you don't know what to create, where to create it, and you're totally in the dark. So it's doomed to fail. And that's why we shouldn't even bother with the idea of you will own nothing.
You know, over the years, I've been close to a lot of children, a lot of grandchildren, children, and very often if I walk into a room or they're coming home from school or something, I always would ask them to make a point. I say, what did you do today that was productive? And I do this to call attention to, how did you spend your time? Did you just look at your cell phone the whole time, or did you do something? But I'm convinced that human beings, no matter where you are on the spectrum or what society is, people get deep satisfaction by being productive, creative. You know, an artist might spend years on a painting and not get any money until after he dies or something, but he's very, very pleased with the creativity. And I think artists very easily understand this. But I think that's available to everybody. And the magnificent thing about this is that the creativity and the productivity is measured not by one standard, because some people are very creative and they have a lot of talents, but you know, even in the Bible they talk about you know, making use of your talents, and it varies, so everybody's not going to produce the same. But I think what this you know, whole thing about a reset, it is totally destructive to the sense of productivity and responsibility and taking care of oneself and making something. You know, my wife happens to be very good at doing quilts, and I love them, and the family loves them. And I keep thinking, and she loves them too, and she enjoys them, but she works hard on them. And I thought, well, you know what, she probably could find some way of buying something like this, and might not be able, people can tell the difference, but people could tell the difference. But she gets tremendous satisfaction from that, and everybody that gets it. But it's creative and you're doing something. But I think that principle can be applied to what anybody does in any job that they have, and the productivity and the creativity is going to vary. But Chris, I am convinced that the movement of welfareism and socialism, authoritarianism, which has been running rampant, and it's epidemic now for over 100 years, it is destructive of that sense of satisfaction of taking care of oneself and being productive. And this is what I think will, in this article, I think they're analyzing that. They're not precisely saying it, but they're saying this is what it's going to be like in 10 years. And it's going to be much, much worse. People won't own anything. They won't produce anything because it will be free. The government's going to provide for it. Well, you know, anybody with a little common sense will know it isn't quite like that. The thing of it is, there's too many people who are willing to make an excuse for saying, yeah, that's right, I think it's neat. When I do something and I build something, you know, I feel real pleased about it. But conditions are tough. You know, I can't do it now. I can't worry about being productive when I need to lobby the Congress to make sure I get my $1,600 check. Now that is what I need right now. We have to worry about the rest later. And I think that is part of the reason we're in this crisis today. But this article, Chris, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think that I'm afraid their analysis of what might come, and that this is a strategy, not so much of an analysis as much as reflecting on the plan that so many authoritarians would love to see.
Right, Dr. Paul, and you mentioned earlier that there are cycles with this. You know, people can look back at the old Soviet propaganda, how they were going to create a new Soviet man in their paradise. And you should read about this man that they were going to create. It was the exact opposite of the man that was created after 70 years. And now we're hearing, you know, they're not using this term, but they're thinking in terms of a new green man. You know, they just changed the wording a little bit, but it's the same principles. And the thing is that human nature does not change. You know, human beings were not created by man and will not be recreated by man. And that's why we and others who advocate liberty, we're not looking to build a new man. It's impossible. We just acknowledge and accept human nature as it is. And we're not looking to create a utopian paradise either, because there is no such thing. Life is challenging whether we have perfect liberty or not. That is not going to go away. And but what we believe is, by far, for human beings, it is much better to interact, respecting one's life and property, respecting another's property, dealing with each other voluntarily, rather than through authoritarian force to get what you want, and especially using politicians and government force to get the things that you want.
You know, when you look at these projections of what's likely to come and what direction we're going in, it's nothing more than a description of what tyranny is all about. And it doesn't fully explain exactly why people become tolerant of it. Even today, stories are written, why did the German people go along with Hitler? And yet there are things going on in our country today. Why did the people go along with all the changes being made that really threaten our whole society and our principles of liberty? They just go along because the pressure or the momentum of a tyrannical system of people who want power over others. But the one thing that they don't even hint, the people, especially the people at the World Economic Forum, is precisely who will be in charge. You know, in their minds, they'll be in charge. You think the people that are writing about the lockdown, they have to know that lockdown's idiotic and it makes everything worse. It makes the health matters worse. It goes on and on. But they never say, well, what would happen? Who's to make these decisions? Who's going to decide whether or not a patient should take a vaccine shot? Oh, but that has to be the government. That's too big a deal that you can't do that. But in here, it leaves it doesn't answer the question, but it really does. The answer comes down to a few people who are the elitists who have been drawn toward a governmental system that gives them power and a sense of they know what's best for everybody. And unfortunately, too often in Washington, I had other members of Congress tell me when I would quietly and in a way try to get some information, why do you do this? I mean, don't you think this could backfire on you? And they say, oh yeah, but the people are too dumb. Yeah, you have to take care of them. That's their attitude. So, and this certainly just raises the question, because if these trends occur and we don't do anything to stop them, the power and the scope of control of the tyrants over us is going to be so huge that it's going to be very, very bad. And I think that is what we have to face up to. The people, unfortunately, so often are willing to take it because the tyrants can't take over if the people resist. But right now, today, I think the evidence is rather clear that there's nothing magic about taking a vaccine. It's a difficult question, and there's no need for millions and millions of people to take it. But the majority, unfortunately, are just demanding it. And when am I going to get my shot? Even though the numbers of skeptics are growing, which I think is healthy. But no, right now there's a lot of people, they're lining up because they want safety and security rather than demanding their liberty.
That's right, Dr. Paul. I'm going to finish up by saying, it's one thing to announce your plans, as central planners often do, but it's another to actually accomplish them and be able to accomplish them. So for example, let's say I'm a billionaire and I want to build a wooden staircase to Mars. Now, obviously I can't do such a thing, but I don't care. I'm going to start it anyway. And I start building my staircase and I get into the atmosphere and the stratosphere and the exosphere. And I'm rich. So all the magazines are saying, look, he's doing it. We're going to get this. It's not going to happen. Maybe it burns down, maybe I run out of money. And that's how it is with communist utopias. Life doesn't repeat itself exactly, but boy, does it rhyme. And, they come up with all these big paradises that they're going to create, that they're going to run, and they do a lot of damage in the meantime. Well, we say, let's skip all of that. Let's skip the damage. Let's not go through the motions. Let's embrace liberty and live voluntarily with others.
Very good. And my assessment now of where we are on this and this reset, many people write it as if, this is new and unique and it's different and nothing stays exactly the same. But in many ways, it's more of the same. You know, we've been over this many times throughout history, and the tyrants rise up, the people get sloppy, people fight for liberty, then they die to be controlled by others, and it goes on, and we're in this period of time where it's up for grabs. I don't think it's automatic that this is going to happen in 10 years. How many people predicted in 1988 that we were on the verge of the disintegration of the Soviet system without dropping one bomb? Somebody probably will claim they predicted it and knew the precise moment that would happen and the Berlin Wall would come down. But anyway, it wasn't in the headlines, it wasn't on our TV, and then it came to an end. It just was totally exhausted. So something like that can happen, but it needs a nudge. The people, when they're scared and frightened, and they're scared even more by the government, there's going to be their demand for being taken care of, and demand for the security, demand for this food stamp. So it's an event that we don't know how it's going to play out. But one thing for sure, Chris, I know as a fact that if our side can't, have some victories here and move in our direction, things aren't going to be very nice. They're going to be very bad and get much worse. There's going to be a lot more violence and poverty and suffering and disease. They certainly didn't prove themselves about the coronavirus, how government bureaucrats can prevent diseases from spreading, and all these things that they took under their wing and made things much worse. But I see this as something that's happened throughout history. There's always been power struggles. There's always been this elite group, and they're the ones who declare themselves elite. And they design their life and their will because they glory in it. It's not so much that 50, 60, 70% of the people rise up and say, I want socialism, and then demand it. No, there's an elite out there, and then the elite sometimes can be in universities and public relations, so they have to condition the people. And then you end up with leaders that take us in the wrong direction, because those leaders come out because they're driven by being a tyrant. And I think, first off, since I've given it a lot of thought, it very often over the centuries occurs in financial matters. Even early on, even when money was just becoming a notion, there were always people wanting control of that. They still do the same thing. There's still this tremendous power and control in the financial markets, and Wall Street getting the bailouts, and how the Fed can control so much. But then there's also a group of people that aren't so much interested in being the financial thieves and running that because they glory in it, and the people have to be taken care of. It is not, we're not selfish, we're doing this to help the common man. But then there's these political leaders. They just like, leadership for the sake of leadership, which is authoritarianism. And then they get into all kinds of social matters. Then we have these social leaders, the revolutionaries, that say that political correctness, people don't act right, we're going to make them right. We'll change our language, and we'll tell them what they can say and can't say. We'll tell them how, if they say the wrong thing, they're going to get kicked out of college. And these are the social tyrants, and we have plenty of that going on. But the one thing our government can't provide, and one thing I think we lack in this country, as all countries have lacked, is that subtly there's another type of leadership, and it doesn't come with a gun. It comes through moral persuasion. And I think it's the moral leadership that we desire, and then those who want to follow, they can. And there's been good examples of this happening throughout the world, that there was sound moral leadership, and people would follow. Right now, today, I think it's on the wane. There's a lot less of this. All you have to do is, I spent a few years in Washington, a lot more than I dreamed I ever could. And right now, even being out for 7-8 years, I would think, boy, what a place. I saw it from the inside and seen it from the outside, and I don't think it's gotten any better. It's actually gotten worse. But there's people there that will always want to have control, and they want to be tyrants over others. You know, when I wrote, and I spent a lot of time, you know, talking about money because money finances all these evil things I don't like war and welfare and poverty and control of the money system. But I wrote a little booklet a while ago, and it was called "And the Fed," and it's mainly about my thoughts about money and how instrumental it is in causing cycles and financing people that do one of these things. So each one of these groups, you know, like the educational system, just think how much money they get, you know, which is created out of thin air by the Federal Reserve and finance it. And now, right now, we see so many tragedies, parents begging and pleading to allow their kids to go to school, and all the evidence shows there's no danger. And yet the teachers are saying, oh no, it's dangerous, we don't want to do this, we're not going back, and they insist on. And they are the ones who want the power and the control, and then when they get there, they're not teaching Austrian economics, and they're not teaching non-interventionist foreign policy, and they're not teaching anything from a moral basis. They're teaching what power is all about. But I want to close by reading a short poem written by somebody a few years ago, like 400 BC, by Aristophanes. And I put this in my book because it tells a lot about this, but it describes what my concerns are in a monetary sense. Because right now, I would say in our country, especially in Washington, there's very little moral leadership. It is based on moral grounds for defending personal liberty, rather than it's all being defined by financial power, political power, and also social determination by people who's telling you how you can speak and what you can do and control the schools. But this comes from a long time ago, and it's basically related to the monetary cycles and how there are ups and downs, but they're related to the social and economic condition. And this was written, just remember, 400 years BC. That was before I was born. And it goes, I'll tell you what I think about the way this city treats her soundest men today. By a coincidence more sad than funny, it's very like the way we treat our money. The noble silver drachma that was of old we were so proud of, and the recent gold coins that rang true, clean stamped and worth their weight, throughout the world have ceased to circulate. Instead, the purses of Athenian shoppers are full of shoddy silver-plated coppers. Just so, when the men are needed by the nation, the best have been withdrawn from circulation. And I think that's what we need in this country. We have a lot of good people, but the balance is out of whack. And to be somebody to influence a world, you don't have to win any particular election. You just have to have a belief and a conviction and ask people to spread the message if they believe in it. We try to do that with our program. Send out a message, and we do our best to research what is going on, and we ask you to join in and spread the message of liberty. Please return to the Liberty Report soon. Thanks for listening.